The smell of polished wood in my father's living room always took me back to childhood, to Sunday afternoons with board games, and the unmistakable aroma of my grandmother's orange cake. But that day, the familiar scent seemed suffocating, heavy with tension and anticipation. My siblings, Clara and Miguel, sat on either side, their faces tense, but masking a glimmer of anticipation in their eyes. I, in the corner, felt a knot in my stomach that grew with each passing second. The figure of Dr. Almeida, the family lawyer for decades, commanded respect. His impeccable suit and aged leather briefcase conveyed a formality that contrasted with the emotionally charged atmosphere of the room. He cleared his throat, adjusted his thin-rimmed glasses, and opened the will. Every word he pronounced felt like a blow. The house, the art collection, the investments, everything would be divided equally between Clara and Miguel. My name wasn't even mentioned. I felt my blood freeze in my veins. Years of dedication to the family business, countless overtime hours, innovative projects I saved from failure, all in vain. That embarrassing silence that settled in the room was deafening. My siblings exchanged glances, Clara with a discreet smile, Miguel with a look that mixed relief and a hint of guilt. I felt invisible, as if I had never existed to my father. The disappointment was so deep it hurt physically. I stood up, staggering, desperately needing air. "Excuse me," I murmured, my voice choked. It was then that Dr. Almeida, with his calm and thoughtful voice, interrupted. "Miss Sofia, please wait a moment. There is a codicil." The word hung in the air like a promise, a mystery to be unraveled. A codicil, he explained, was an addendum to the will, a supplementary declaration that could significantly alter the original provisions. He opened a sealed envelope, carefully kept within the leather briefcase, and began to read. The room fell silent, each of us holding our breath, waiting for what the next words would reveal. What had my father left there, in that hidden piece of paper? Dr. Almeida's voice, once so firm, now wavered slightly as he unfolded the yellowed paper. I felt a chill run down my spine. The words he read were cold, bureaucratic, but carried immense emotional weight. The codicil began with a reaffirmation of the original division of assets between Clara and Miguel. My heart sank. Had it been in vain, then? The fleeting hope that had ignited was extinguished as quickly as it arose. But then, the lawyer's tone changed. He cleared his throat and continued. "However, I emphasize that Miss Sofia will receive the entirety of the family company shares, previously divided equally among the heirs." The room seemed to spin. Shares? The company I had dedicated myself to so much, the company my siblings had always despised, would be mine? My eyes widened, seeking confirmation in Dr. Almeida's impassive face. "Furthermore," he continued, with a meaningful look, "this codicil contains a condition. For Miss Sofia to receive the shares, she must reside in the family home for a period of 1 year, caring for its conservation and maintenance." 1 year? Live in that house, the stage of so many memories, so many grievances, with my siblings? The idea was suffocating. The silence that followed was broken by Clara's forced cough. "This is ridiculous. Dad would never do this." Her voice was loaded with disbelief and anger. Miguel, in turn, seemed stunned, unable to articulate any words. Dr. Almeida maintained his composure, explaining that the codicil was legally valid and that the final decision was up to me. My mind was a whirlwind. The company, my company, was within my reach, but the price to pay seemed too high. A year living with my siblings' hostility, reliving the painful past in that house. Would I be capable? I looked at Clara, venom dripping from her eyes. Then at Miguel, confusion stamped on his face. That codicil, that legal surprise, had unearthed deep resentments, revealing the true faces of my family. The dispute over inheritance was just beginning, and I, involuntarily, found myself at the center of a hurricane. The final phrase of the codicil echoed in my mind. "I believe Sofia will demonstrate the strength and leadership capacity necessary to honor our family's legacy." Legacy? What legacy? The one where I was left aside, ignored, underestimated. Anger boiled in my veins. "I need time to think," I declared, my voice firm despite the internal tremor. 1 year is a long time. I need to consult a lawyer. Dr. Almeida nodded. understanding the complexity of the situation. Clara and Miguel exchanged glances, trading malicious smiles. I knew they wouldn't make my life easy. The battle for inheritance was just beginning, and I had the feeling it would be the most difficult of my life. That secret codicil had opened Pandora's box, releasing secrets and resentments that would change our family dynamics forever. What I didn't know was that, by accepting the challenge, I would be diving into a web of intrigues and secrets, even more obscure, that would lead me to question everything I believed about my father and about myself. I still felt the weight of Clara's gaze burning my back as I left the house. That scornful smile, the certainty that I wouldn't be able to fulfill the condition imposed by my father, gave me more strength than I imagined. But the truth is that at that moment, uncertainty consumed me. I called Mariana, my best friend and lawyer. I needed someone to help me understand the fine print of that codicil, to explain the legal implications of such a peculiar condition. Mariana had always been my rock, the voice of reason in moments of chaos. I knew I could trust her to give me honest advice, without judgment. "Sofia, what a surprise! Did something happen?" she asked, her voice concerned on the other end of the line. I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "Mari, I need your help. My father's will. It was complicated." I told her everything, from reading the will to the revelation of the codicil, the condition of living in the house for a year, my siblings' reaction. With each word, I felt the weight of that situation becoming more real. Mariana listened attentively, without interrupting me. When I finished, she paused before responding. "Sofia, this is peculiar, to say the least. A codicil with such a condition is unusual, but not illegal. We need to analyze the document carefully to check if there's no abusive clause or ambiguity that can be questioned." We scheduled a meeting for the next day. I needed to see that codicil with my own eyes, understand every word, every comma. The idea of facing my siblings in a legal battle terrified me, but the injustice of being left out of the original gave me the necessary courage to fight. The next morning, I met Mariana at her office. The environment, with its shelves full of books and the aroma of fresh coffee, gave me a sense of calm. She already had a copy of the codicil in hand, with annotations and markings in various colors. "Sofia, after analyzing the document, I can tell you it's legally valid. The condition imposed by your father is eccentric, but doesn't infringe any law. The question is, do you want to accept this condition?" I looked at the codicil, at the cold and bureaucratic words that sealed my fate. The company, my company, was there, within my reach. But the price, I don't know, Mari. The idea of living in that house with Clara and Miguel terrifies me. They'll make my life hell. Mariana stared at me with her insightful eyes. "Sofia, you've always been strong and determined. Don't let fear paralyze you. Think about what this company means to you. Think about all your work, all your dedication. You deserve this opportunity." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the anxiety that corroded me inside. Mariana was right. I couldn't let fear prevent me from fighting for what was mine. "I'm going to accept the condition," I declared, my voice firm. "I'm going to live in that house for a year. And I'm going to prove to my siblings and to myself that I'm capable of honoring my father's legacy." Mariana smiled, relieved. "That's the Sofia I know. Now let's devise a strategy. We need to prepare for what's to come." And what was to come, I had no idea. Moving to the family house was the first step in a journey that would lead me to unearth dark secrets, confront my ghosts from the past, and question everything I believed about my family. That codicil, that legal surprise, had put me on a path of no return, a path that would lead me to discover the truth, however painful it might be. The move was chaos. Boxes everywhere, dust accumulated on old furniture, the smell of mold impregnated in the walls. The house seemed abandoned, waiting for a breath of life that never came. Clara and Miguel welcomed me with fake smiles and venomous innuendos. "Come to stay, Sofia? I thought you wouldn't last even a week," Clara jabbed, while I tried to untangle a light cord behind the sofa. Miguel, with his usual sarcastic passivity, offered help to unpack, with a tone that made it clear he'd rather see me leave. I ignored the comments, focusing on the task of organizing my room. It was the old guest room, small and uncomfortable, with a somber view of the back garden. The walls needed a new coat of paint, the furniture was outdated, and the bed creaked with every movement. But it was my refuge, my safe space in that hostile house. The first night was the worst. The silence was deafening, interrupted only by the strange noises of the house, the creaking of floorboards, the groaning of wind at windows, the ghostly whisper of trees outside. I had difficulty sleeping, tormented by nightmares about my father, about the will, about the shadow of injustice hovering over me. In the following days, I tried to establish a routine. I woke up early, prepared breakfast, which my siblings refused to touch, cleaned the house, tended to the garden. I wanted to show I was willing to fulfill the codicil's condition, that I wasn't an opportunistic intruder, but a legitimate heir. But Clara and Miguel did everything to sabotage me. They hid my belongings, turned off the heater in the middle of the night, spread rumors about me to the neighbors. Clara, in particular, seemed obsessed with provoking me. She made sure to show off her expensive dresses, her imported cars, her luxurious life, as if she wanted to rub in my face how inferior I was. One afternoon, while I was cleaning the living room, Clara entered with a victorious smile on her face. "I have news for you, Sofia. I found a buyer for the house. An American investor is willing to pay a fortune. We're going to be rich." I felt my blood boil. "You can't do that, Clara. The house belongs to the family. It has sentimental value." "Sentimental? What nonsense. What matters is money. And you, Sofia, won't get anything. The house will be sold before you complete a year here." Anger consumed me. "You won't intimidate me, Clara. I'm going to fulfill the codicil's condition, and I'm going to prove I deserve the family company." Clara laughed mockingly. "You? Lead the company? Don't make me laugh. You have no talent, no experience, no ambition." "I have determination," I retorted, my voice firm. "And that's more important than anything else." The argument intensified, with screams and accusations from both sides. Miguel watched everything in silence, with a Machiavellian smile on his face. At the height of the argument, Clara pushed me, and I fell to the floor, hitting my head on the corner of the table. The pain was excruciating. I felt blood trickling down my forehead. Clara and Miguel exchanged glances, frightened. "Sofia, are you okay?" Miguel asked, his voice hesitant. "Get out of here," I murmured, my voice choked. "Leave me alone." They withdrew, leaving me alone on the floor, with physical pain and emotional pain mixing in a whirlwind of suffering. At that moment, I realized that the battle for inheritance wouldn't just be a legal matter, but a fight for my own survival. That house, the stage of so many memories, had become a battlefield, and I needed to fight with all my strength not to be defeated. What I didn't imagine was that behind the walls of that house hid a dark secret, a secret that would change everything. And the key to unveiling it was in an old diary hidden in the attic that would reveal the truth about my family's past and the real reason why my father had left me that peculiar condition in the codicil. The pain throbbed in my head, but anger was a potent painkiller. I got up with difficulty, wiping the blood with the back of my hand. I needed to get out of there, breathe fresh air, think clearly. I walked staggering to the garden, sitting on the wooden bench under the shade of the old mango tree. That place, which once brought me peace, now seemed suffocating, impregnated with my siblings' malice. I looked at the house, imposing and sinister under the sunlight. How many secrets did those walls keep? How many lies had been whispered in those rooms? The certainty that my father had underestimated me all my life corroded me inside. Why hadn't he left me anything in the original will? Why had he imposed that absurd condition on me in the codicil? What did he expect me to do? I decided I needed to find answers. If my father had hidden something, I would discover it. I began to search the house, room by room, closet by closet, looking for clues. Clara and Miguel watched me with disdain, certain I wouldn't find anything. But I was determined. After days of frustrated searching, I decided to explore the attic. It was a dusty and forgotten place, full of old boxes, broken furniture, and worthless trinkets. The smell of mold was unbearable, and the darkness was almost total. With the help of a flashlight, I began to examine the contents of the boxes. I found old photos, yellowed letters, childhood toys. I relived happy and sad moments, memories I had buried deep in my memory. In one of the boxes, I found an old diary, with a worn leather cover and pages yellowed by time. My father's name was engraved in golden letters on the cover. My heart raced. Would that be where I'd find the answers I was looking for? I sat on the dusty floor and carefully opened the diary. My father's handwriting was elegant and precise, but the words he wrote were loaded with anguish and suffering. He talked about family secrets, about betrayals, about a dark past he tried to hide at all costs. As I read, the puzzle of my family began to form. I discovered that my grandfather had enriched himself illicitly, that my father had been complicit in his crimes, that my mother had died under mysterious circumstances. With each page, the image I had of my family was falling apart, revealing a dark and perverse side I never would have imagined existed. On one of the last pages of the diary, my father mentioned a secret that could destroy our family. He said he had made a terrible mistake, a mistake that haunted him every day. He also mentioned a codicil, an annex to the will that would reveal the truth about this secret. My heart accelerated. Could that be the codicil that Dr. Almeida had read? Would that be where the key to understanding why I had been left out of the original will was? I continued reading, anxious to discover the truth. But then, the next page was blank, and the next one too. The diary ended abruptly, without revealing the secret my father so feared. Frustration consumed me. I was so close to finding the answers I was looking for, but the diary had left me with more questions than before. What had my father hidden? What was this secret that could destroy our family? And why had he imposed that condition on me in the codicil? Suddenly, I heard footsteps in the attic. I got up quickly, hiding the diary behind me. Clara and Miguel entered the attic with malicious smiles on their faces. "What are you doing here, Sofia? Looking for something?" Clara asked with a tone of scorn. "It's none of your business," I replied, my voice firm. "Oh, of course it's our business. After all, this house is ours too," Miguel retorted with a threatening look. I realized they were suspicious. They knew I was looking for something, and they wouldn't leave me alone until they discovered what it was. "I was just exploring," I declared, trying to disguise my nervousness. "This place is full of old and interesting things." Clara approached, her eyes fixed on me. "Show what you're hiding, Sofia." I tried to resist, but Clara was stronger than me. She pushed me against the wall and snatched the diary from my hands. "What is this?" she asked, examining the diary's cover. "It's nothing, just an old diary," I replied, trying to stay calm. Clara opened the diary and began to read. Her eyes widened as she advanced through the pages. Miguel approached, curious to know what was written. When they reached the blank page, Clara and Miguel exchanged glances, confused. "What does this mean?" Miguel asked, his voice hesitant. "I don't know," I replied, with a tone of mystery, "but I think we're going to find out together." At that moment, a ray of sunlight invaded the attic, illuminating a specific point on the wall. It was a small hole, hidden behind a spider web. "What is this?" Clara asked, pointing to the hole. Without hesitation, I walked to the wall and put my hand in the hole. I felt something cold and hard. I pulled with force, and a small object fell into my hand. It was a key, an old, rusty key with a strange shape. "What does this key open?" Miguel asked, his eyes wide. I looked at the key, feeling a chill run down my spine. I knew that key was the missing piece in my family's puzzle. I knew it would open the door to a dark secret, a secret that would change everything. "I don't know," I replied with an enigmatic smile, "but I think it's time to find out." And with the key in my hand, I prepared to unravel the mystery my father had hidden all his life, a mystery that would lead me to question everything I believed about my family and about myself. What I didn't imagine was that by opening that door, I would be releasing dark forces that threatened to destroy everything I loved. The search for truth had become a race against time, and I needed to be faster and smarter than my enemies to survive. But the question that hung in the air was, which door did that key open, and what was waiting for me on the other side? With trembling hands, I examined the key more closely. It had an unusual design, not like any modern key I'd seen before. There was something engraved on it, barely visible through the rust. B47. Clara and Miguel crowded around me, their hostility temporarily replaced by curiosity. B47? What could that mean? Clara whispered. I stood up, brushing the dust off my clothes. There's only one way to find out. We spent the next hour searching every room, every door, every lock in the house. Nothing. The key didn't fit anywhere. As frustration mounted, Miguel suddenly stopped in the hallway. "Wait," he said, his voice barely audible. "What about the basement? Dad always kept it locked, said it was just old junk." My heart pounded. In all my years living in this house as a child, I'd never been in the basement. None of us had. Dad had always said it was structurally unsafe, filled with nothing but maintenance equipment and old boxes. We descended the narrow wooden stairs, the old wood creaking under our weight. The basement was darker and more cramped than I'd imagined, filled with the musty smell of decades of neglect. But there, in the far corner, stood an old metal filing cabinet with a small plaque, B47. The key slid in perfectly. With a click that seemed to echo through the entire house, the lock opened. Inside were files, dozens of manila folders, photographs, and documents. But as I pulled out the first folder, my hands began to shake uncontrollably. The tab read, Sofia Almeida, Adoption Records. The world seemed to stop spinning. Clara gasped behind me. Miguel grabbed my shoulder. "Adoption records?" Clara's voice was barely a whisper. With trembling fingers, I opened the file. Inside were official documents, hospital records, and a photograph. The photograph showed a young woman holding a baby, me. But the woman wasn't my mother. It wasn't the woman whose funeral I'd attended when I was 12. It wasn't the woman whose pictures filled our family albums. The documents told a story I never could have imagined. Sofia Martinez was my birth mother, a young immigrant woman who worked as a maid for our family. She had died in childbirth, the same day I was born. My father had adopted me immediately, but created an elaborate lie to cover it up, claiming I was his biological daughter with his wife, Elena. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. At the bottom of the file was a DNA test, dated just 6 months before my father's death. It confirmed what the adoption papers suggested, but what I wasn't prepared to read. Rodrigo Almeida was not just my adoptive father. He was my biological father. Sofia Martinez, the maid, had been his mistress. I was the product of an affair, a secret that could have destroyed his marriage and his reputation. When Sofia died in childbirth, he had convinced his wife Elena to raise me as their own, telling her that Sofia had been a surrogate mother carrying their child, a lie that Elena took to her grave. Clara and Miguel weren't just my siblings by adoption. They were my half-siblings by blood. The room spun as the implications hit me. The woman I'd called Mother, my entire life had known the truth, but chose to love me anyway. The man I'd thought had neglected me had actually been protecting me from a secret that could have destroyed our family. And the codicil. Now it all made sense. My father's words echoed in my mind. Sofia will demonstrate the strength and leadership capacity necessary to honor our family's legacy. He wasn't testing my worthiness. He was ensuring that I, the daughter born of love, but also of betrayal, the child who had unknowingly cost him so much, would finally receive what was rightfully mine. The company, the life he'd built, had always been intended for me. Clara and Miguel would inherit the material possessions, but I would inherit his true legacy, the business that was built on secrets, love, and sacrifice. In the bottom of the cabinet was one final envelope, addressed to me in my father's handwriting, for Sofia, when she's ready to know the truth. Inside was a single letter. My dearest daughter, if you're reading this, it means you've uncovered the secret I've carried for 30 years. Sofia Martinez was the love of my life, though I was too cowardly to leave my marriage for her. When she died giving birth to you, I promised her I would give you everything: love, opportunity, and eventually, the truth. You are not just my daughter by blood, but by choice, by love, and by sacrifice. The company has always been yours. I only hope that one day you can forgive a father who loved you so much that he was willing to lie to protect you. You are stronger than Clara, more compassionate than Miguel, and wiser than I ever was. The family legacy is safe in your hands. I looked up at Clara and Miguel, their faces pale with shock. In their eyes, I no longer saw the contempt and superiority that had tormented me for months. I saw fear, confusion, and for the first time, respect. "So," I said, my voice steady despite the emotional hurricane inside me, "it seems I really am home." The battle for inheritance was over, but a new chapter of our family's story was just beginning.